So many beginners, when they think about drawing, they think about detail and shading. They get into rendering too soon in their drawing process, spend hours with their shading, developing values and soft transitions, as well as little teeny tiny details, and yet at the end, after hours of putting in hard work, their drawing still looks off. And this is because they sped through that initial part of the process or simply are unaware of tools and techniques that will help you establish a solid foundation to build on, which is incredibly important. And this initial phase that I would highly recommend spending more time learning about and practicing is the block-in phase. As beginners, most people get really overwhelmed with all of the detail because that is all we see. By training ourselves to simplify what we're observing into basic shapes or forms, and also understanding how to work large to small, general towards specific, we can better focus on what matters most in the beginning, which is establishing effective proportions and locations of elements within the picture plane, making sure that we have a good amount of positive and negative spaces in the composition, utilizing our drawing space effectively, and all this so that we can have something solid to build on, whether we're going to be moving on to shading with graphite or painting or anything else. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing a time lapse of a graphite still life drawing that I created. And along the way, I'll be talking about what the block-in phase is, why it is so important, and I'll be providing specific tips, tools, and techniques that you can start applying today to improve your drawings. I'm going to be making the reference photo that you're going to see me work with available as a downloadable in case you'd like to follow along or try this drawing for yourself while applying these ideas. All right, let's jump in. Before starting with any new drawing, I would recommend observing your reference photo for a bit or whatever it is that you have in front of you in real life and ask yourself some questions. For example, which are the largest objects here? Are they taller than they are wide or wider than they are tall? Where do I have overlapping taking place, which is covering up certain sections of objects in this picture? Do I see a mix of man-made and organic objects, or do I just have one or the other? Are there shapes present that will involve creating symmetry? And what shapes are asymmetrical? If I were to group these objects together, would they fit more into a rectangle or a square? Sometimes it's even helpful to actually create tick marks over your reference photo just to get a feel of things before jumping into your block-in process. And even as you're starting your block-in, it is helpful to lay down tick marks so that you can visualize the total width versus height of each object before sketching out the shape. In other drawing tutorials, maybe you've heard me use the word envelope. This is essentially the same thing as a block-in. It's when you oversimplify your shapes using a series of straight lines that you bring together, taking major angles into account, but keeping the shape as simple as possible in the beginning. The block-in is the very first stage of the drawing where you set up the structure and the placement of everything on the page. Think of it as the skeleton of your drawing. The more accurate and solid that skeleton is, the fewer problems you'll deal with later. You could argue that the block-in is the most important stage of the entire drawing process, and the more you practice it, the more confident you become because you're training your eye to see proportions and relationships clearly. During this phase, we use straight lines, even when you're drawing subject matter that has a lot of curves to it. And yes, using straight lines can feel strange at first. However, shapes with straight lines are easier to measure, easier to compare, and much easier to adjust. They help you simplify complex forms into manageable shapes, and you can always soften and refine curves later. You also want to draw very lightly during this phase. Light lines keep the drawing flexible. You're still making decisions. You're still adjusting. You're not committing to anything just yet. At this stage, you're not shading, you're not adding texture, you're not trying to make anything look pretty. This is just laying the foundation for everything that is coming up next. The block-in phase is about structural planning, placement of big shapes, checking proportions of shapes, identifying angles, understanding overlaps, and managing space on the page so that you're not left with too much negative space around your subject or group of objects, or too little negative space. This phase is not about details or texture or shading or dark, heavy lines. I like starting with the largest shapes that I see, and then I start building around that. This helps me utilize my space more effectively. In this case, the white pitcher and the pear are the two largest objects or shapes that I should definitely get in the beginning. And I want these two objects relatively centered within my page. And then I'll add the smaller shapes above and around these larger objects. I do need to make sure that I'm leaving enough space within my page for the smaller objects. You can see how I'm constantly comparing these two largest shapes when it comes to their widths and their heights in order to make sure that proportions are similar to those that I'm seeing in the reference photo. Asking yourself, how many times would the height of this object fit in the total height of this other object? And how far off to the left or to the right does this object fall in relation with this other object? Does the pear reach, say, the halfway point of the picture or not quite? I'm also trying to make sense of the overlap happening. How much of that white picture is the pear covering up? Making sure that these shapes are not too large and not too small within my page or my picture plane that I am working in. Once my larger shapes are looking good to me in terms of proportions, locations, and major angle changes, I go ahead and start adding in medium-sized shapes, which in this case, I would say the handle of this white pitcher is definitely a medium-sized shape that I wanted to make sure to attach. And then I go ahead and start refining my shapes and softening curves. At this point, you can see how I've already started adding in some medium-sized or even smaller shapes. I have attached the handle to the main pitcher shape, and once that's looking right to me, I go ahead and start refining shapes and softening curves. I'm not rushing into anything. I am taking things a step at a time and always checking back on what I just did, working large to small, general towards specific, constantly comparing my sketch with the reference photo, and not moving forward until the previous phase is looking right to me. All right, so my largest shapes are in, and I've already refined those shapes, softened the curves, and I can now get started with the smaller shapes. I start by adding in that stem inside the larger pear shape, really noticing where it falls within this right portion of this larger shape, and how close this smaller shape is to the edges of the larger shape. And then I move on to adding in the grapes. And with things like these grapes, where you have many similar overlapping shapes, it's very important to get in that sense of overlap as you're drawing the individual shapes. Meaning, you want to notice what sections are being covered by a grape that is in front or next to the grape that you are drawing. As you continue adding in more shapes and lines to your drawing, you're going to have more landmarks to compare previous shapes and lines with or to. And so because you have more points of comparison, so to speak, it is natural that along the way you're going to realize that you need to make something a little bit larger, a little bit smaller, or move it a little bit more to the left or to the right or upward or downward. So continue always comparing elements with each other. And with these grapes that are at the top of the picture, it is especially important to get in that sense of overlap, because otherwise it can look like the grapes are floating in the air or like they're not really sitting on each other. So really pay attention to how much of that shape you're actually able to see. And you can even zoom into this part of the reference photo so that you can observe things more closely. With groups of smaller objects like these, it is also helpful to consider not only the shape of the element in isolation, but also the shape that the entire group creates. This will help you keep better proportions. You can create individual envelopes for each group of grapes. And then once that shape is in, you can break it up into the individual elements. I try to make sure to always bring in a table line, just the same way that I would bring in the horizon line if I were sketching a landscape or a scene, because it really helps situate the volumes in space. It provides greater context, and I'm also able to add in the shadows on that surface later on when I am shading. I'll be linking to a step-by-step tutorial where you see me apply these same principles when drawing scenes in the recommended resources below in case you'd like to check it out. Finishing up by adding in the stems, connecting these grapes, and I'm officially done with my outline drawing, which I can then move on to shading or transferring onto watercolor paper or another type of substrate to move on to paint. And something that I definitely like doing before starting with my shading or any color work is I observe the reference photo and I notice where the light source is in relation to the subject or group of objects in this case. In certain situations, the location of the light source can certainly be tricky to make out, especially if there are multiple light sources or it's an outdoors situation where we have more of a cloudy day and diffused light. However, in this situation, I can tell that this still life arrangement has been set up in an indoors studio where there is artificial light. I can see that the main shadows are on the lower left and the lighter areas are on the right side. And so I can conclude that the light is hitting these objects from the upper right. It is especially important that you notice where those lightest areas are and where the darkest areas are. And then you can create a map for yourself so that you can remember as you're shading, hey, these are the lightest areas and these are the darkest areas. That's exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm still using that hardest pencil grade. In this case, I'm using an HB pencil and I'm creating these shapes and lines very lightly. If you don't notice these things from the beginning and create a little map for yourself in your drawing, which as you can see here, I am creating these abstract irregular shapes, especially so that I can remember the lightest areas and the darkest areas. But if you don't do this, it's more likely that you'll arrive at inconsistent results when it comes to your shading, which can take away from the realism, and you're going to have trouble creating that range of values that you need for believable depth. It's very helpful to squint as you're observing your reference photo because this will kind of blur the image to where you're only able to see those major tonal changes and you're not so distracted by the smaller tonal shifts. And another thing that you can do if you're having trouble pinpointing different values is turn your reference image into a black and white image, because this way, instead of getting confused by all of these different colors, everything has been unified or synthesized into one single tonal scale, from light to a range of grays to blacks. Now, this video is not really on shading. I do have other drawing tutorials where I take you through my full shading process and how I like bringing in different pencil grades from hardest to softest as I am developing my range of values. And I will be sharing more videos on alternative shading techniques, which is what I'm using to shade this one. I personally really enjoy developing depth via alternative shading and not more traditional, smoother shading techniques where everything is super smooth and you bring in a blending stump. I really enjoy the sketchiness and the final look that alternative shading techniques like hatching and cross-hatching in this case produce. But they are, in my opinion, a completely different animal from the more traditional shading techniques where everything is super smooth, because we're essentially developing depth through lines and marks. Alternative shading techniques include hatching, cross-hatching, stippling, scribbling, contour lines. I'll leave a link to a tutorial where you can see me shade spheres in pen and ink using the most common shading techniques. And even though these techniques have been made popular by pen and ink artists, you can certainly use them with traditional graphite pencils, as I am doing in this one. Here you can see a combination of regular hatching and cross hatching in those areas that I wanted to darken and push the contrast in even more. Regular hatching involves laying down groups of straight parallel lines. And it's important to keep a consistency, at least within your groups of parallel lines, in terms of the angle that you lay down those lines at, and also keeping the distance between your lines consistent is helpful. There isn't a specific angle that you have to go in, just pick one and then stay consistent, at least with that group of lines. And then if you want to go in with cross-hatching to darken areas even more, you lay down a second group of parallel lines over that previous group at an angle that would cross over the first. As I continue doing this shading, I am paying attention to my mapping that I created to remind myself of where the lightest areas are and where the darkest areas are. I'm trying to leave plenty of that paper uncovered, especially in the lightest areas, so that the white paper can stand in place of highlights and help me create lighter values. Whereas in the darkest areas, I'm layering on more lines or using lines that are closer together so that I cover up more paper. I also used 3 different pencil grades throughout this process. I started out with my HB pencil, and then I moved on to a 3B pencil, and then finally I am using an 8B pencil right now. I have videos where I explain about different drawing pencil grades and how they can come in handy throughout the drawing process, which I'll make sure to link to down below as well. But I'm always making my way from harder pencil grade towards the softest pencil grade, because softer pencil grades like, say, a 6B or an 8B have softer graphite in their cores, which is going to lead to darker lines and smudgier graphite. I want to close this video with a few key takeaways so that you can remember these moving forward. The first one is to start with a harder pencil grade like an HB or an H for your block-ins and keep your pressure light. This will help keep your drawing flexible in the beginning when you're just getting started, and it will be easier for you to erase mistakes. The second thing is make sure that you're working large to small, general towards specific. Don't get carried away by little details until the larger structures are in and they're looking okay. The third one, and this is more of a tip, is practice your block-ins often with different subject matter and different objects. Use simple, everyday objects that you have at home around you. You don't even have to take your drawings further into shading and detail. Simply practicing your block-ins and focusing on that will help you develop much needed skills so that you don't have to depend on tracing or being provided outlines in order to move forward with your artwork. And the final tip is to avoid rushing your block-in. Try spending at least the first 20 or 30% of your entire drawing time on just the block-in. If you want your drawings to feel more solid, more believable, more intentional, start treating the block-in phase as a major part of your drawing and not just something to rush through. It's definitely quiet work, it's not flashy, no one gets excited about straight lines and measuring, but this is the part that builds real confidence. When you know how to place things accurately, when you understand proportions, when you can organize space on the page, drawing stops feeling chaotic. You actually have a process to work through, and that clarity changes everything. And remember, shading and detail, they don't fix structure. Structure makes the shading work. If drawing has ever felt overwhelming for you, I want you to know it's not because you're not talented or not practicing hard enough. Most of the time, it's just because no one taught you how to approach it step by step. The block-in is one of those steps. And once you start approaching your drawings this way, you'll feel the difference. So try it. Be patient with yourself as you're learning. Learn to enjoy the process and make sure that you're building a solid foundation to jump off from.